Okay, thank you everybody for joining. I'm Kellic. I'm the Earl Marshal of the Middle Kingdom. I have a handful of my deputies here with me today too. We're here to do a Marshal Town Hall. So I have a handful of news to share with folks. And then we're also going to have a time for people to ask questions or to give feedback. This is a good opportunity for anybody. We've had things come out of these sessions where people have said, I'd like to see about this or that. It's been really good feedback. And so that's where we're going to go. The first thing I'm going to cover are high points from my position. I want to announce to everybody that my term will be coming to an end this fall. So that means coming in April, I'm going to be putting out the call for my replacement, which means that I'm going to try to fill that role by May, so that we have time for that person to marshal to follow me at the Spring Crown. They also follow me at Penzig so that they can see the job and know what's going to go on, and they'll be prepared for next year. Next year, the whoever is the Earl Marshal will be Marshal One at Penzig. So in 2025, that'll be a big position. So that's the big news from my office. Next, we'll go into the specific disciplines, and I have some notes for each of those. For armored combat, a big thing that we're doing is we are going to require that all armored marshals have to take a new ed class where we'll go over the most recent editions of the handbook, any changes that we've made. And then afterwards, they're going to need to take a short quiz, not the full, people are still joining. I should have known better. Not the full test, but they're going to need to take a partial test to keep their warrant. We're going to require that all of that be complete before Penzig, so that people who are marshaling at Penzig are the best prepared that we can do. And so, in addition to that, we're going to have a handful of classes online. We've also been talking to our regional marshals for armored combat. They're going to also be we've been empowered to offer the class with our notes to folks so that people can try to get we're going to try to do this as far and wide as we can, to get out as much as we can. So that's the continuing ed requirement. You're going to have to take a class, you're going to have to take a test. The next big announcement for armored combat is that we are going to be allowing non-authorized marshals. Previously, we required all marshals to be authorized. We're changing that. We're going to, it's not a blanket permission, but if you want to be a marshal and you're not authorized, you can contact myself or my deputy. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a short talk with you to make sure that that we feel good about you being a marshal, that you have I'm gonna say that you just have a bit of a clue, that you have good intentions, and then we will have you do the MIT process. And this is open for combat archery as well as siege for the armored side. So it's pretty wide open across the board for that. What else did I want to say that? So that's gonna with the change of having non-authorized marshals, that's going to the next question is how will that affect people who want to get authorized in styles? And what that I'm gonna mute this phone down here. And what that means is that what we're going to do for authorizations, people are still required to have two marshals. You have to have two warranted marshals for any authorization. But what we're going to say is the chief marshal, the marshal who is running the authorization, has to have that authorization. The second marshal does not have to have that authorization. They can act as a second set of eyes, and it's a good way to get some experience. And this goes for combat archery and siege as well. For combat archery, you have to have one combat archery marshal, and then the other one can just be any other flavor of armored marshal. So this is a good way to try to expand to expand the siege and combat archery participants. It won't be quite as onerous to get that. So we're going to be doing that. Our Nora, my deputy for combat archery, also tells me that we're going to be offering a combat archery marshal class where it's a quick overview of it. It'll be a way to get some signatures for your MIT process as well. And then the last thing for armored is that we have one experiment running right now, and that's thrusting tips on both ends of a one-handed weapon. So that's been going on for a couple months now. It seems to be what I've seen so far, just without any real data. This is all just anecdotal, is that People on the west end of the kingdom seem to be using it. People on the east end of the kingdom don't seem to be using it as much. So it's interesting. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to open up to questions at the end. So we'll go through the other areas too. Next up is rapier combat. And so with rapier combat, Mirabai is also going to be looking for a replacement soon. She's going to put out that call in April. Again, we're going to try to have that filled by I see in here on the continuing education plan, one assumes this will be an online portal item. It will not be in the portal. It is online. We will have a link to the test soon. We don't have it quite written yet. We do. For Rapier Combat, Mirabai is going to be looking for her replacement. We're going to put out that call in April. And depending on timing, the interview might be with me and her and my replacement, or it might be just with me and Mirabai. That's going to be dependent on how the timing kind of goes. And then with the idea with that they can also shadow Mirabai at Penzig this year. The other thing is we released a new edition of the Rapier Combat Handbook. And there were some changes to that. And then today, just before this, we also announced that we're allowing the non-authorized marshals to be in rapier combat as well. So that's another change for rapier combat. With this, the rapier rule changes weren't as extensive as the armored rule changes. And last year, rapier also did continuing education across the board. So for rapier this year, we're going to ask people to take a short quiz. I've looked at it. It's 10 questions long, and that includes the question for your name, your email address, and your region. So it's really 7 questions. And at the top is all the information that you need to know, all the changes. Mirabai did a really nice job of putting that together. So we're going to ask everybody who's a rapier marshal to take that, to read that quiz, and then to read the information and take the quiz. I think that I have the form here. I'll put it into the chat. Oh no, it's on a different computer. Mirabai, can you paste that in when you get a chance? Okay. And the link for this is also currently up on the Kingdom webpage. And we also made a couple posts on Facebook about it too. So then on Rapier, the experiments that we have going on, we have reduced armor on the torso, which is just a narrowing of the reduced armor experiment. They didn't have quite enough information for torso, so that one is continuing. We have reduced armor for cut and thrust. We have non-metal weapons for cut and thrust, and we have grappling for cut and thrust, are all of the current rapier experiments that are going on. Let's see, and that's everything I have on the rapier side. Next up, we have archery, the big things that we have on that. Diedrich has done a fantastic job as our archery marshal, but his term is coming to an end. At Better War Through Archery, Forrester Dickon is going to be stepping up to fill that role. I'm sure he'll do a great job too. The other big change that we have on archery is that atlatl is legal now. So atlatl needs to be run on an archery range, but it's no longer an experiment. It's just something it's an activity that we can do. It does require a separate marshal certification, like a marshal authorization to run it. So it's like a subset of archery marshals. It's also available to thrown weapons marshals, but due to the range, the distance that we need for atlatl, it's something that needs to be done more on like an archery range size of field. So you're not going to have that next to people throwing axes and knives too much of a distance. So that was also the big news from thrown weapons. With equestrian, we are also going to be allowing non-authorized marshals on equestrian as well, following the same program as we're doing for armored and rapier. We really want to try to grow equestrian, and this is one way that we can do that. And then on youth armored combat, we put out a new handbook for that. I think in December or January. It's been fairly recent. And then we also have a new youth rapier handbook. And OMI is also going to be having continuing education for that, as well as a test for rapier youth marshals. A general thing the last section that I have are just in the general section is we now have a MIT request form. If you want to be an MIT, you can go to the Kingdom webpage, to the Earl Marshal page, and there's a link there you click on. It'll take you to a form that you can fill out, so that we can then have some central tracking on that. Isabel, the clerk of the roster, is going to forward that to the appropriate person, to the appropriate deputy, for them to sign off on that, to give the approval. And then we'll put you into the authorization database saying that you are an MIT. You'll get your form and you can get your signatures that way. If you are not authorized, you will need to sign a waiver and get that on file with the clerk of the roster before you can start your MIT process. And we expect MITs to be paid members. Marshals have to be members. If you are an MIT, you also need to be a member. If you have trouble with the membership portion, I know that the SCA itself has I'm not thinking scholarship fund is the right term, but they have a fund to help people pay for memberships too. So that could be an option, or talk to me and we'll see what else we can work out. Deputies, did I miss anything? We have a couple on here.
I just wanted to say, since you mentioned that torso was not included in the new rules as far as the reduced armor is continuing. And the only option for armoring down now is on the torso. So they are still collecting data on that with the hopes that it will become society-wide rules in the near future. Currently, cut and thrust is still included in that until the cut and thrust reduced armor experiment that's a society experiment is up and running. And then once that's up and running, we'll join it as a kingdom, and cut and thrust will be doing that one. Please, if you participate in any experiments, period, make sure that you're reporting. We're still having issues with people not reporting, and when we don't report, there's a potential for experiments to get shut down. So if you're doing it and enjoying it, please make sure to report.
That's a great call out too. We also need to make sure that if you're a marshal that you're reporting, if you're a marshal of the field that you report at Domesday, and if you're a marshal of a group that you're reporting quarterly. I don't know, everything just clicked off here. The power got weird. Okay, so we have that. So make sure that you're reporting. Something else that I should go over is we have she stepped up right before Penzic, right around Penzic. We have a new society Earl Marshal. And she's great. I've had a couple of conversations with her. She has a really good head on her shoulders. She has a really clear and good vision for the society and for all the martial disciplines. And one of that is she's trying to standardize the processes and the rules across the board where it makes sense. So that if you are an armored combatant and you jump over to rapier, the rules of the list will be the same for across all the board. And she's trying to roll out new handbooks. So we should be expecting, so far we've released armored and rapier. We should be expecting the other disciplines to get a society update sometime. My guess is this year. So that's just something to be aware of. They are also looking to revise the sanction process or sanction policy. So that'll be coming down the line too. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No, nothing else comes immediately to mind. Do any of my other deputies have anything that they want to add in today? Okay. So that's everything that I had to cover. Now it's the time for anybody who has questions or feedback.
MIT process in that new form, is it a requirement that to start they go there, or if somebody can directly reach out to one of their regionals to start the process, so long as the regional gets a waiver to the clerk of the roster?
I mean, I suspect that the regional will probably be telling them that they should go fill out the form, so we have the documentation. But I don't know that I'm so that we require that. Like, I'm not a stickler of that. Like, I guess you can do that, but the regionals really should be telling them to go fill out the form. But things happen. The important thing is to make sure that you let Isabel know that you're that we have MITs, so we can get them tracked. I see in here, Forrester Patrick said, please define sanction policy. So if somebody is misbehaving on the field, what justifies, what are the behaviors that people can be punished for or have sanctions applied to them, and how long those sanctions go and who does them and things like that. The thing they're kind of doing is around in the meetings, it's kind of been like a yellow card, red card from like soccer kind of rule is how they've been thinking about it and talking about it in terms. I don't know if that's going to stick with that, but that's just to kind of give you the idea. I have a question here from Robert, and then we'll hop over to Elf and Gwyneth. Robert says, regarding Plumbata, has there been any update on the construction of the darts? I know there was a concern about similarities to lawn darts. I haven't heard any update on construction of plumbadas. Um, so I don't know that there is anything on that. Um, Alf and Gwyneth, what you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question. If I'm currently a rapier marshal of the field, and if I wanted to add on armored combat as a becoming a field marshal, and I follow the process, would I still have to do all the paperwork process is the same across the board? Would that just be whoever's my sponsoring marshal to check that off, saying yes, you know how to do paperwork, and then just focus on the more hands-on portions of it, or is it going to be start and work your way up again? I'm just curious about the process with that.
So you're saying that since you're already we hadn't considered people crossing over. So I think if I'm understanding your question right, or your feedback is, if you're already a archery or a
Rapier.
marshal, yeah, I know
Yeah.
who, if you're already a rapier marshal and you want to come over to armored, do you really need to do the paperwork section of that? I don't, we haven't thought about that. Before I commit myself, I'd want to check with other marshals, but that
Okay.
seems like a sensible way to go. Pellinor says he'd be doing the same, but the other way. So it makes sense. We've tried to streamline things where we can. And I think the paperwork is probably okay. We wouldn't want to do authorizations or running the activity because those are different.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems like the paperwork, if you're working 3 events, you're going to get the signatures anyway. So it's not, but if that's a really a big barrier, then I'm fine with that
It's
too.
just very. It was just curious. I was just curious about the process. If you're already a full-fledged marshal in one area and you just want to be an associate marshal in the other side, so I was just curious about that.
That's a really good suggestion, and that's something. Ooh, I'm trying to type on the wrong computer. So that's I was saying I have 2 computers here running, and how often I'd be trying to do the wrong computer, and the answer is every time I try to type. Yeah, that's a good takeaway, and something that we'll have to think about a little bit.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other Logan, you have your hand up?
About the combat archery marshals. If I'm already a marshal, right, and just at large, I know there's combat rules and everything. Do I need to have all the signatures again for going into combat and all that?
Now, are you talking about as an archery marshal going to combat archery, or are you talking about?
Yes.
Okay. With that, that's another case where we've allowed, and the rules, we say that if you're trying to become if you're a combat archery marshal, you can get the bow inspection authorization signatures on the rapier or on the archery range.
Slow
There's
down.
too many disciplines. I'm too excited. So I would see that that's another place where maybe there's some overlap where we can not worry as much about the bow inspection signatures. But we would still need to have the authorizations and the paperwork's a little bit different. So we still would need to have some signatures on those, and checking the ammo is a little bit different too.
That's,
Well,
I was just going to say that changing the ammo is going to be the big concern for somebody inspecting that. And for a combat archery equipment inspection, you're going to need to have a bow scale.
Okay. Because I don't want to do the combat archery itself, because with my health issues, I'm not going to be able to, but I could still do a marshaling.
Absolutely,
So-
and we'd love to have you. The more marshals we can have, the better. So yeah, we could definitely have you do that.
Sounds good.
Ulfer, you have your hand up, I think.
Yeah, I do, because I don't know how Zoom works. I don't know how to do the little icon thingy. The last time I spoke with Orange Regional, I know in the Middle Kingdom, slings for something experimental. Has there been any update on that? Because I haven't been able to find an answer.
No, we as far as I know at this point, we don't have a sling program in the middle. I know Orin did a demo at Harvest Day last year that was well received. And that's something that we've been open to. And that might be something that comes up this spring.
Okay, so is that something that we want to start working towards? Like maybe I should start putting the word out that that might be a thing we'll be doing at Throne soon. Maybe like drawing some more attention or interest.
I think that you telling me that is a good reminder for me to go talk. I'd rather check to see if we're going to be doing it before we get people excited. I don't want to get people excited and then tell them no, we can't do something. So I'm gonna take that away as a takeaway for me to see where we're at with that. And if we're doing it, then we'll let people know.
All right, fair enough. Sounds great.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Great.
Feedback? No? Okay. I can stop the recording.
You've got one in the chat.
Oh, I do. Okay. In regards to the MITs for Armored, how do they get their paperwork for signatures? So what you do is you go to the Kingdom webpage, and on the Earl Marshall page, there's a link to an MIT, a form to sign up to be an MIT. You fill out that form. I've not had any requests, but gave thumbs up for 2 so far. So once the person fills out the form, it is going to go to Isabel. She's going to approve it, check with the regionals or the deputy, and then it gets emailed to people. I have had a person or two who the form, when it got emailed to them, ended up in their spam folder. So if somebody applied and they haven't heard back, then they might want to check there too. Duncan, did you have your hand up?
I did. I was just gonna just express some appreciation for the experiment we're currently doing with the double thrusting tips. I found it to be very well received locally here.
Great. Are they? I haven't gone out and looked at the reports, but if you guys are using it out there, make sure you're reporting it. That way we get the feedback on it.
And the reporting procedure for that is just sending that to the deputy for that and to the armored.
There should be a form that you go and fill out after you've used it.
Cool. Thank you. I'll look for that.
Okay, thanks. If you can't find it, drop me a line and I'll let you know. Anybody else have any questions, feedbacks? Okay, then I'm gonna stop the recording.